Hi, everybody. Welcome to December's Lunch and Learn webinar. Today, we're going to be going over integrations. And while integrations can be a pretty broad topic, Jen has narrowed it down to a couple of the main ones that we see you guys calling in about or having questions about. So we're going to be going things like e-commerce, some OTC, some other like loyalty platforms and things like that. And then if you guys can just hang on at the end, we do have the new 2026 series all planned out and put together. So I'd like to share that and give you the link. So if you would like to register for next year's Lunch and Learn series, then we can talk through that. So Jen, if you are ready, go ahead and start with your integration demo.
Thank you, Christina. I am going to, like Christina said, I'm going to be going over a few of the different integrations. It's certainly very broad topic, so I did narrow it down. I'm going to go over some software integrations, like e-commerce, warehouse integrations, OTC, and then I'm also going to go over some of the hardware integrations that we can do, with scale management and ESL, electronic shelf labels. So we're going to just kind of talk about that and how Ravyx and SMS both can integrate with that. I'm going to be showing this in both Ravyx and SMS just so that way you can see the new way of how it will look in Ravyx, but you'll also see a lot more of you are still using the older V3 software just so you can see both, so it makes more sense to you. So I'm going to start off with the software side and with e-commerce. So I do have Ravyx up. I will be switching back and forth just so you're aware. But for e-commerce, we offer a lot of different integrations and different levels of integrations. Some of the platforms that we work with is Instacart, DoorDash, Mercado, Local Express, just to name a few. There are more than just those, but just to kind of give you some highlights. A very common integration that we do is just exporting information to them. So they host the website and we export the data up to them on a timed interval. Just so you can see how we set that up, that's all done through our scheduler. So I'm in Ravyx right now, so you're in the system, which we haven't really touched yet because this is something more that we would definitely go in there and set up, but just in case there's an issue. Maybe you have a huge sale that you need to cut everything 50% off on, and you want to get that sent up immediately instead of the timed interval. We usually have daily. We have people who do every 4 hours, every 1 hour. That way the prices are updated on the website, their inventory is updated on the website if that's something you're sending, and you need to send it up right away for whatever reason. You can't wait for that timed interval to come up. First off, you're always welcome to call into our help desk. But if you wanted to do it yourself, it's all done on the scheduler. So I'm in eSuite system, Ravyx system, under scheduler. Pretty easy to remember. And then under scheduler, what we normally do, just going to go ahead and go to the end here. I have a few different ones, examples set up here. Again, like I said, there's other ones out there. I just used a few as examples. You see I have like an Instacart export file and an Instacart export FTP. Generally speaking, we have two scheduled tasks. One of them will create the files from your system, and one of them will send the file to Instacart or Mercado, whatever one that you're using. So if you need to come in and send this right away, you would go ahead and click on the file. You'd always want to create the file first. Down here, there's an execute button. You would just execute, and it will give you the task is in the queue. I usually say give it a couple minutes. It usually takes, depending on your item size, your item file size, it could take a few minutes. Usually 2 minutes is enough, but we usually schedule them about 5 minutes apart just to give it enough time in case there's something going on. And then you can just go ahead and now I want to send it. You would just be able to click on the FTP, execute, and it will start the FTP process. There is the ability to have multiple. So we have many customers that have Instacart, Mercado, DoorDash maybe, so you can have multiple. It would be set up just like I have up here on the screen with the scheduler where you could have them just multiple tasks. And again, the intervals that you could have for these tasks, we would work with you on. Some people are fine sending it up once a day. Some people like it more frequently, so maybe twice a day, every 12 hours, every 4 hours. And a handful have like every hour if they have a lot of things going on. So it would just be whatever interval that you're comfortable with. And again, we'd be setting up just your item file, so your pricing, your inventory, descriptions, if anything like that changed. Just so you can see how this works in SMS, if you're running the V3 version, I'm going to go ahead and pop, oh, I left it open, sorry about that. I'm going to go ahead and pop into SMS Pro. If you're looking for the scheduler in SMS Pro to run that scheduled tasks, it's actually here under the messages dropdown. And then under status scheduler, right here, and here are those same exact tasks I just showed you, Instacart export file, Instacart export FTP, and over here is the same idea where you can execute that button manually. 99% of the time, it's not something you need to do manually. I'm just kind of showing you how it's set up in the back. If you want to change the timing, so you want it to be more frequent, that you're sending it up there because you're making a lot of changes on your items, or you're running out of inventory frequently, something like that, that's something that you can easily call our help desk and we could change the intervals for this so that way it's sending like you would like to. Before I switch into the other part of e-commerce, which is importing, I just also want to show you that there is some controls on the item level if you want to. There's no extra item maintenance if you're integrated with e-commerce that you need to do. There is extra item maintenance you can do if you want to. We have a lot of customers that sometimes want to not send certain items up to their e-commerce website for whatever reason. It could be produce items, they just don't want to have that on their Instacart site maybe. Alcohol items, there is a lot of laws out there restricting being able to sell them on the website and the age verification that needs to be done. Whatever the reason may be that you want to flag items to not send, that's something you can do in your basic item maintenance screen. I'm just going to go ahead and close this. I'm going to stick with Pro since I'm in here, and then I'll show you how to do it in vice versa. So right here, so you would just go, you have an item that you don't want to send up. We'll just say my PLU code 45. What we do is we go into the other field on the POS table, and we have web order disable, web order enable. If you have certain items that you don't want to send, you would just let us know. I just have like a handful of items I don't want to send to my website. So we would just have the script look for that disable. So you just have to go in and flag the items you don't want to send. You don't have to do both. So if you're just going to say, I just want to disable, have the ability to disable sending some of these items, you would just do disable on the items you don't want to send. You don't have to hit enable on all the other items. If it's vice versa, and it's actually easier for you to flag what items you do want to send because you only want to have a certain subset of items going up to the website, that's perfectly fine. We would just flip the scripting that we're doing, and you would just come in here and use that web order enable. So you just flag the items you do want to send. You don't have to do both. You don't have to go and enable all the items you want to do and disable all the others. We just look for one or the other. So that way you don't have to go flag every single item. We're trying to minimize the item maintenance that you have to do. This is the only additional item maintenance you would have to do in order to integrate with the e-commerce websites. Everything else, the price fields, anything like that will automatically send up. So you don't have to do anything else special. This is just if you want to have some control on the item level. Just so you can see how that does look on the Diversa side. I'm going to go ahead and switch to manage. So we're just going to go ahead and use that icon and switch into manage, which I already have open. I was looking at this beforehand. So you would just go here under items, under master. And like I said, it was the POS table. So I'm going to go under POS information. And I'm just going to go ahead and execute it on all my items just to bring them all in, just to make it a little bit easier. Since this is a drop-down menu, it's a little bit easier. You can see this is the other flags. Right here, it's not. You can come in here and you can go ahead and do this drop-down menu right here if you would like to. So I haven't not refreshed it. I just added the enable and disable. So you would just be able to click it right from here if you would like to. Or you can come under the edit and do the master table with the POS master. And it would be just like we were looking at when we were looking at this in Pro. You can click this and you would be able to do web order enable disable. So, or if you remember the letters, you could just type them in there. So it's exact same process in both of them. And again, this is only if you have certain items that you want to not send or only certain items you would like to send to your platform. The other part of e-commerce is bringing that information back. So you're sending all this information up to the website They're selling them, people are purchasing, they're going on the website, they're purchasing them. You'll certainly get that information back from whatever your platform is, Local Express, Mercado, they'll be sending you this, like here's all the items that you sold, here's your payment, of course. But if you would like a lot of them offer the ability to import the transactions back into your system. So that way you can keep not just your reporting accurate, so you can see exactly what was sold that day, but you can also make sure your inventory is appropriately adjusted. So we do that by setting up a terminal, basically, in this back office system that will be your e-commerce register, and it's a virtual register, so you're not actually going to have to do anything. And again, this would be in a timed interval. So switching back to our scheduler, which is under System, you can see right here, right above the exports, I have the import. So I would be having a task to go ahead and get the transaction files. Now, the platform has to be able to provide us the files. Most of them can, but they have to be able to give us a transaction file so that we can bring it down in there. So this would go up to their FTP site to get it and pull it down into your system. There's a handful that will just drop it right into your server. That works too. I just wouldn't need this task to go ahead and get it, but most of them do need us. They'll put it right on that same FTP site that we're sending the item files to. And then there's an import transaction. This again would be in a timed interval. So we would be checking that site every so often. A lot of them are once a day. They'll post all the transactions once a day. Some of them go up every 4 hours. So we'll go up and check every 4 hours to see if any new transactions posted, and we'll pull them down and then import them into the system. But if you think that there's something that didn't go, you think that there's transactions that have processed that you haven't seen, you can easily come in here and execute those tasks as well. Once they're in, it just looks like a transaction to you. So I'm going to go ahead and switch back to manage just so you can see how it looks. If you've ever done like a journal search or anything in Triversa or in SMS, you would just be able to come under auditing and look at your journals or transactions. I'm just going to go ahead and pick transactions, and I can look at all my transactions and just look at all of them for today. Obviously, in a live store, you would get a lot of transactions. It's not exactly the easiest way to be able to search. So you can come down and switch to a different target. So I did look at them earlier, so it's showing, but you can do show search tool, and you would just want to find that virtual lane to run it just on that virtual lane. We would name this to make it easier for you. I did call it my import transaction terminal, but we can call it the e-grocery terminal, the local express terminal, just to kind of, likes to have a few different ones. So go ahead and pick that target, execute, and then this transaction was something that came down earlier. So I can see it came down today. It was on my virtual lane. I have a virtual operator. I would just set up an operator and my transaction number and how much was sold. So I can come down here just like with a normal transaction and look at all the details so I can see all the items that were sold. So it gives me a list of all the items. You just scooch that over with the UPC codes, the description, the dollar amount they sold, the quantity that they sold, and how much I got paid. So this was I did this as a Mercado import. So my tender will just be a placeholder tender, Mercado, so that way I can see it's $237 because the actual payment's going to be coming from Mercado. So it's not like this would be a Visa or anything like that. It would just be kind of a placeholder Mercado, so that way you could get the total amount you sold through your e-commerce platform and make sure it matches up with what you're getting paid. And again, there's nothing additional that you have to do manually. This would just be happening automatically in the background throughout the day that they're bringing them in. And they will also show up on your sales reports. So just so you can see, I'll just run a single total. This is the only transaction I believe I've had today, just so you know, so you can just see in my net sales are exactly, that'll add right into your net sales without any additional intervention with you that has to be done. And just so you can see an SMS Pro, we'll just pop into journals over here, all transactions, and you can double click on there to find your e-commerce, or you can just, we usually use 911. Certainly can use a different number just right there, but we can go ahead and look at that transaction, get all the details, all the items that were sold. Bottle deposits can be tracked if there's any service fees that they're charging or commission that's being charged. All of that can be broken out and separated out in here for you to view, and it will also be in your reporting. So just to run that same kind of idea with that report, I'll run the store multi-total just so you can see, nope, thinking. Nope, I think I minimized it. Oh, it came up behind it, sorry. So there you can see the net sales and you can see the other revenue for the commission and all that, and we can name those appropriately. And there's my different tenders right there as well. So that would be how you can actually be able to bring in the transactions to make sure your reporting is appropriately updated. So moving from e-commerce, there's warehouse integrations that we also offer that we can integrate with platforms like Crasdale, Bazzuto's, Agni, AWS, just to name a few of them. We can do imports, so if they offer sales batches that we can bring those into the system, cost changes. If they have receiving documents, so if you are ordering from them, we can import the receiving documents in so they show up for you and you don't have to go scan everything in. You can just double check before you close it. I'm just going to show you how that would come into the system, how it looks when it comes into the system. There is some configuration that you can do with this, so this would be up to you how you would want it to work. So we'll just start with the sales batches cost changes that you can bring in from them. Some of our customers like to have it come in and just automatically apply. They don't want to look at it. We can configure it to be that way, so it just flows right through your system. Absolutely no manual intervention, just comes right in. And you never look at it, you never touch it, you can't make any changes to it, that means. Or you can stop it at various places, so that way you can look at it in a batch format and be able to make any changes. Since I'm in Pro, I'll start here. I have mine set, you can stop it at external batch or in-store batch. I have my system stopping at in-store batches. I prefer that personally, just because that's where I can actually make changes a little bit easier, but you can stop it at external batches. So I can go under my maintenance screen and look at my future batches. And I have a sales batch right here. I can just execute that filter right there. And they sent down 6 items in a sales batch, and right here what the future sale will be. So they're putting that item on sale. And you can either change the price. I don't want to mark it down to $2.50. I don't want to mark it, you can come in here, I want this to be $1.50, so you can actually make your own changes to it without, the warehouse having to call the warehouse and be like, no, I don't want to put it on sale that much, whatever reason. And you can make your own changes to it. A good example right here where you can also, if you have an item you don't want to put on sale. So I didn't mean to put the vegetable oil on sale. I don't want that to be on sale. I don't have a lot on hand. You can come up and looking at this future sales window, you can easily come up and you can delete. Now that doesn't delete the item, it just deletes the future sale, so it deletes the sale. So it's no longer part of the batch and it won't go on sale. So if I execute it, you see that it's gone down to 5. Same thing with cost batches. So it would automatically import again. You don't have to have this stop in place. This is just if you want to check to see what's happening. We have both sides. We have people who who just allow it to go through. They don't need to stop it. They'll just allow it to update their pricing and their cost, their sale pricing and their cost. They can do TPR. They can do retail price batches. They just let it go ahead and flow through. That's perfectly fine. We have some people who absolutely don't want their prices to change without going and checking it first. So this would be where you can go and check it before the batch automatically applies. Most warehouses send these out usually a couple weeks beforehand, so you have plenty of time to view it if you want to do that. Going down to cost batches, so it's right here, so you can see in the cost batch, I don't have any future sale. You want to have your future cost windows open, so if I go under my batch, I can go ahead and open up my future cost so I can see what the cost is changing to. And I also want to see what my current cost is, so I'll go under item drop down and have my current cost. So you can see right here, this is my new cost. It's going down to $25 for a case from $25.80 or up to $41, over $40, and so forth. Again, if you want to make any changes, I don't really have a good reason why you'd make a change to the cost. Maybe they called you and said we sent that by mistake. That's not the new cost. They accidentally hit like $4 instead of $40. You can make an adjustment. Or if you don't want to accept the cost, you can go ahead and delete it out of the batch from here. This is also available in Triversa. So switching back here to go to manage, we go under items, and right here's batches. So you would just want to go ahead and view your batch, to go ahead and view it to make any changes. If you're on my batch webinar, you can go into batches. You can look at your type, you can search for them, whatever you're looking for, just execute it kind of open-ended to see all the batches in your system and go to the end to look at your future batches. And you can go in here, you can look at the items existing in the batch, and you can make any changes in here that you would like to change. It's an editable field. So you can go ahead and make any changes that you would like. If you're wanting to do that, or again, you can have it set to flow through. The other part is receiving. So again, like I said, we can import and receiving from various warehouses. If we're going to do that, we're going to want to go ahead, we're in manage. So with Triversa, we're going to want to switch to buy. Give a second to load in there. So you would go under the buy dropdown and receiving. Now you can do this in two different ways. It will automatically import into your system as an open receiving document, or you can manually import in the document. So it will kind of go through a process where it's just sitting there waiting for you to import it in. If you are doing that part right here with Triversa, you would just click import documents. You want to import all of them. You can search by certain vendor, anything like that. You go ahead and execute it. It will look for any files and pull them in. We can configure it to automatically import in. In both cases, if you're doing this, either importing automatically or going manually importing, it will import as an open receiving document. We'd never import as a closed receiving document because you definitely want to double check that what they're telling you that they sent in the receiving document, you actually got in through the back door. You know, mistakes happen. So we always import it as an open receiving document. In either case, it will come in like that. So you can just go into, we'll just click on, you can search by documents, or you can just click on all to show you all the documents right now. I have a lot of open orders and receiving documents, but like here's one that I got from CNS, a receiving document. It's open. And then here's another one from Adam's brand. So this would be, oh, look, I got this. It just came in from CNS. I have 11 items. What do I want to do with this? Well, I want to go and I want to open this document and make changes to it. So over here, you have the list of items. You can view it over here. You can also just pull up all the items, the lines in here to look at that. So if you're just wanting to get all the lines in the receiving document, just to kind of get a bigger view, I didn't actually receive 4 of these. I received 2 of these, and you can make the changes. So that way you can double check before you close the document. But once you're done with it, then you can easily go, we'll just scooch this over, come over here, and you can close the document, and then it will bring all the items into your store. This, you can see how that works in SMS. Same exact thing. I don't want to close this document right now just because that way, let me just suspend it so that way we can look at the same document in SMS. So we're going to go under buying, extended module. So go to my receiving. There it is right there with the CNF. So I can go ahead and open this. I can look at that same exact information we were just looking at. So I go into lines. These are all the things that were showing up here. And if I need to make any changes, I can double click on here. Hey, you said I got 5. I didn't get 5 of these. I got 2 of these. You can make those changes on the document before you close them. So that's how come we always import as an open receiving document. And again, let me just go ahead and suspend this. It will either automatically show up, or if you want to have that manual part where you're going to just double check to see if there's any open receiving documents coming through. Up here under document, there's your import, the same as that import that I just went over in Triversa. So the last integration for software-wise I wanted to talk about is a little more talking than showing is OTC integrations. It's become a big topic. We do have a lot of integrations with different OTCs. So InComm OTC, we have a full integration with Solutron OTC and Nations Benefit is a new one that we have an integration, that we offer an integration with. There's really not a lot to show you with that because there's no different item maintenance for all of these. Basically, when you're running the transaction through the point of sale, the customer will say, I want to pay by OTC. You would go, the cashier would then go ahead and press the OTC button. The customer swipes the card, and then it takes the transaction, depending on the card and what button you pushed, InComm, OTC, Solutron, all of that, and it will send it up to that processor. InComm, Solutron. They'll check it. Yep, they have enough funds, and we covered this, and they send it back. If you want to accept it, you just accept the payment, and it's done. So there's no item maintenance. They look at those items, not you. There's no really additional things that you have to do on your side. Just signing up with them was really what the end user has to do. So they have to contact the different OTCs and sign up and set up an account with them. Once they do that, then we just go in there, install it, set up that part to send it up to them, and that they handle the rest. So it's a very seamless integration. Once you get that account set up with them, that seems to be their little backlog sometimes with that. But once that's set up, then we can just go in there, and there's no item maintenance training. The only additional training is with your cashiers that there may be a new button for balance inquiries. They can check the balances on the OTC cards, and some of them require a separate button. So you just have to hit InComm OTC or Solutron OTC. They are working on getting them to be part of, like, if you have that all-in-one button, that you can just use that. So I'm going to switch gears and go over to hardware really quick. So I'm going to for hardware, I'm just going to talk about scale management and then ESLs. For both, I'll start with the scale management. So for scale management, we're able to fully integrate with scale. So not the scales on the cash register, but the scales like with the deli counter, at the produce counter, seafood counter, whatever you may, or meat counter, wherever you may have a scale. And we're able to send down the pricing information down to those. The nice thing about that is there's really nothing additional that you have to do in order to send it down. It's all real time. If you are going into, I'm going to pop back to manage. We're going to stick in Thriversa for the moment, and I'll show you how it works in Pro. So if you're going in to change pricing in item maintenance, so you need to change the price of an item, it will, as soon as you deploy changes, it will go down to both the registers and the scales. So there's nothing additional that you need to do, nothing additional you need to flag. If you are looking to do a little bit more, there is some more auxiliaries that you can do. I'm just going to go into our item maintenance really quick, just kind of do generic for the moment. Maybe I should have narrowed that down. Sorry about that. Forget how many items I have loaded in my lab. We'll just switch over to Pro really quick while that's loading. Yeah. We'll just do a certain sub-department. My fault. I shouldn't have left it open-ended. Just I have so many items in my lab sometimes. So if you're coming in to do item maintenance, there is some additional scale information that you can have. So there is a whole different table. It's called scale information. And this could be some additional information that would be for your scales only. So you can see I could put a shelf life. So it's like when you print the tag at the scales, it's supposed to expire after 10 days. 10 days. If there's a tear at that scale, not at the front register, that's always a little confusing, but if there's a tear at the scale where they're weighing it that you always are using the same exact packaging that you would like to remove, you could say like, oh, it's 0.01 per pound that I need to remove from the weight of the item at the scale. If there is scale ingredients, you can go ahead and link this to scale ingredients, and I'll show you where you set the scale ingredients in a second. And Nutrilink, you can also, if there's Nutrilink information you need to send down, you can link it here. So you set it up in a different table and link it here. Then any other information that you're seeing here, like a specific label, a message, allergen, anything like that that you need to send down. Again, this would just be for the scales. You can link that to the item. And it would also go down to the scales of the deploy change. If you go under item auxiliary, This would be where you can do under your scale table. So this would be where you would set the scale ingredients, scale Nutrifacts. So you can come in here. So like I said, you link the item to the ingredients. This would be where you list off the ingredients. So you would just give it a number, and the description would be, I usually say to try to keep it to the item you're linking it to, and then you would just list off the ingredients. So just so you can see, I'll edit this one. So it's just a description, and then you list off your ingredients. So the description does not mean anything. It doesn't send anywhere. But if you wanted to keep it so you know what item that it's linked to, or if you want to reuse it in multiple items that have the same exact ingredients, you just have some specific message like you need to put onto a bunch of items, you can do that as well. But that would be how you can do that. Same thing applies if we go into Pro. Let me just bring that back over. So in Pro, we would have the same idea. I'm going to go back into our item maintenance. So we're going to maintenance, item maintenance. So again, if you make any price changes, you don't have to do anything about that. Like I said, price changes will automatically go down to the scales without anything else. Same idea as what you're doing when you're sending down price changes to the lanes. You just want to run that deploy change. But they do have those additional scales. So if I go under the item dropdown, there's my scale info. So it's the same thing we were just looking at, where I have that text link to link it to ingredients, Nutrilink, that shelf life, the tear, those are the most common ones, and then the label format. And then you would just be able to go into auxiliary, and that's where your scale ingredients would be and your scale Nutrifacts. So these are going to be exactly what we just looked at, just different formats. If you need to adjust any ingredients or add ingredients to some items, you would be able to create those scale text and ingredients listing, and next deploy change on that item that you linked it to, it would send right down. So there is additional item maintenance you can do to add the ingredients, to add that information in, but you don't have to. And there's really nothing that you have to change with what you're doing with your item maintenance normally. Price changes will go down the same way they go down to lanes with the deploy change. The last thing I was going to talk about is ESLs. So there's really not a lot to show with the ESLs. The nice thing about that is how seamlessly it integrates. So if you are looking at doing electronic shelf labels, it's very simple. There's no additional tables, so you don't have to worry about that. All you have to do is the same idea as if you're coming to change the price. So if I'm changing this price to $2 and saving it, and then I go ahead and deploy changes, pretty much all you have to do. It does take a little bit longer to get to the ESLs, like this is kind of be seconds, it could be like a minute if that, and there's no special table or anything you have to link it to. It will update those electronic shelf labels for you. Same thing in Thriversa. So if I'm looking at this in Thriversa, you would just do regular item maintenance on the items. When it gets sent down, like I said, it's not as quite as quick. It's not within seconds, but it's within minutes. Like it has to go, it goes up, then they send it back down to the ESLs. I'm not going to say it takes very long. It doesn't, it could be like a minute instead of 10 seconds. That's all. But there's no additional tables, no additional information. It's just all things that we set up. So there's not really a lot to show you for this. So just kind of wanted to go over that. We do integrate with them, and it's really seamless for you on your end. So with that being said, is there any questions that came in, Christina?
Nope, no questions that have come in. We can give everybody a second in case they have anything. I know we went over a lot, like we said at the beginning. Integration is a huge bit. We integrate to so many different things, so it's hard to pinpoint and cover all of them, but I think Jen definitely covered the main ones that we tend to get questions in about. Okay, so we did have something come in. If you send price changes to a scale via the POS controller coming from SMS host originally, and the scale is down or off the store network, will the price changes that could not be applied originally, will they be applied automatically once the problem with the scale is back up?
Yes. They will sit pending in a folder to send to the scale. As soon as the scale's back up, it's going to keep checking that like every couple minutes. And then as soon as it sees the scales back up, it'll take all those pending price changes and push them right down to it. Same idea actually if a lane's offline. If a lane's offline, they'll all sit there until the lane's back online, and as soon as it comes back, it'll push all those price changes down. They sit in a folder in both cases.
Okay. And that was the only question that came in. Jen, do you want to pull up that webinar list for next year? I'll keep my eye on the questions just in case anybody has any additional. But on the screen now, so you guys can see, Jen and I and some other members of the Ravyx team did go through help desk tickets from this last year to review, what you guys have had questions about. So these were the top 10 that we saw that we figured we could do some lunch and learn educational sessions on. You can see the dates on here. They're all the last Thursday of the month, except for October, due to a trade show that we're going to be attending. That one is the second to last Thursday of the month. And then because you guys are so busy through the holidays, we decided for November and December of next year to not have a lunch and learn like this. But we're also adding in a secondary webinar that's going to be the Ravyx rundown. So that's going to be done by some of our solutions engineers. New innovative things that we're going to be doing outside of just the things that seen you guys having some questions on. So keep an eye out for the rundown schedule. I don't have that one finalized yet. But you guys can go in through that QR code at the bottom right and register for the 2026 webinar series at this point. It is going to be a separate series from this year. So you will need to re-register if you're interested in attending any of these webinars. Jen, we did have something else come in. So it says, thanks, Jen. That is what I thought, but my pricing department tells me that it is not true. So it looks like you helped her or him solve some issues that they were having internally. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Not really a question, just that. All right. If nobody else has any questions, like I said, feel free to register. Thank you guys for joining us this year throughout our webinar series, and we hope to see you guys in 2026 for the new series that are going to be coming your way. Everybody have a good, happy holiday season, and we will talk after the new year. Thanks, guys.